Jefferson Columbus bought her for $50,000 at a charity auction, thinking it was the end of something. Instead, it was the beginning of a war he couldn't win, one waged in silk sheets and whispered commands, where surrender felt dangerously close to salvation, and the Alpha who'd sworn never to bond found himself giving orders he wasn't sure he wanted obeyed. The 17th night was when Scarlett Franklyn realized she was in trouble. Not the fun kind of trouble, the kind that came with Jefferson's rough hands and rougher commands, the kind that left her breathless and boneless in tangled sheets that probably cost more than her entire semester's tuition. No, this was the existential, life-altering, what the hell am I doing kind of trouble that made her stare at the ornate ceiling of his penthouse bedroom at 3 in the morning and question every choice that had led her here. "Stay still," Jefferson murmured against her neck, his tattooed arm heavy across her waist, pinning her to the mattress with the casual possessiveness of a man who'd never been told no in his life. "And take it." Scarlett almost laughed. Almost. Because that phrase, his phrase, the one he'd used every single night since that charity auction that had somehow become a lifestyle, had evolved from command to ritual to something that felt uncomfortably close to a promise. "Stay still, take it, take him, take everything he offered and nothing he didn't." "I have a 9 a.m. lab," she said instead, her voice still rough from earlier activities. "Dr. Richardson will actually murder me if I'm late again." "Fire her." "She's my dissertation advisor, not my employee." "Then I'll buy the university and fire her." "That's not how academia works." "It's how money works," Jefferson countered, his breath warm against her shoulder. "And I have significantly more of that than your Dr. Richardson has tenure." This, Scarlett had learned, was peak Jefferson, the man who'd built cryptocurrency empire before 30 and thought every problem could be solved with aggressive capitalism and a black American Express card. He wasn't wrong as often as she'd like him to be. "You can't just throw money at everything," she said, though her conviction wavered when his hand slid lower, fingers splaying across her stomach with deliberate intent. "Watch me." "Jefferson, stay still." There it was again. That command that shouldn't work, that she should resist on principle, except her body had apparently signed a treaty with his Alpha without consulting her brain first. She felt herself relax into the mattress, felt her breathing slow, felt that infuriating, inexplicable sense of rightness settle over her like a weighted blanket. Dangerous, her mind supplied helpfully. This is how it starts. She'd seen it 100 times in her advocacy work. Omegas who'd confused good sex for genuine connection, who'd let an alpha's pheromones override their common sense, who'd woken up bonded and trapped and wondering where their lives had gone. She'd counseled them, supported them, helped them rebuild. She was not going to become them. Except Jefferson wasn't like the alphas she'd dealt with in her work. He didn't try to control her life, didn't demand she quit her program or give up her friends or mold herself into some perfect Omega fantasy. He barely even asked about her day, maintaining the careful emotional distance of a man who'd confused detachment with safety. And yet every night he said, Stay still and take it, like those 4 words contained the only truth that mattered. Every night she obeyed. Every night she told herself it was just physical, just chemistry, just 17 nights of really, really excellent sex with a man who looked like a romance novel cover model and fucked like he'd studied the manual. "You're thinking too loud," Jefferson said, propping himself up on one elbow to look at her. In the low light from the bedside lamp, his face was all sharp angles and shadows, his dark hair falling across his forehead in a way that should have been illegal. The tattoos that covered his arms and chest seemed to move in the dim light. Serpents and flowers and mythical creatures she'd traced with her fingers but never asked about. She'd learned early that Jefferson didn't do personal questions. "I'm thinking at a perfectly reasonable volume," Scarlett replied. "You're planning your escape. I'm planning my morning." Same thing. His hand moved to her face, thumb brushing across her cheekbone with a gentleness that contradicted everything about him. "You always leave before dawn." That was the arrangement. Arrangements can be renegotiated. Something in her chest twisted. "Jeff." "Stay," he said, and this time it wasn't a command. It was something worse. It was a request. "Through breakfast, I'll have my chef make those chocolate croissants you pretended not to love." "I didn't pretend. I actively hate chocolate croissants." "You ate 3 of them last Tuesday and made sounds that were borderline pornographic." "That's called enjoying pastry like a normal person." "Nothing about you is normal, Scarlett Franklyn." He said her full name like it meant something, like he'd been practicing it in private. "You're brilliant, you're stubborn. You're the only person in my life who's ever told me to go fuck myself and meant it affectionately." "I've never said that affectionately." "You're also a terrible liar." She wanted to argue. She wanted to gather her red dress from wherever it had landed in the chaos of their arrival, call a car, and disappear back into her normal life, where she was a graduate student who volunteered with Omega outreach programs, and definitely did not spend her nights in penthouse bedrooms with tattooed billionaire alphas who ordered her around like she belonged to them. Instead, she heard herself say, "One breakfast." His smile was devastating. "One breakfast." It was a lie, and they both knew it. Scarlett made it to her 9 a.m. lab exactly 3 minutes late, which was a personal record considering she'd spent the previous hour watching Jefferson Columbus cook eggs in nothing but black boxer briefs while his chef, who apparently lived in a separate wing of the penthouse and appeared on command, prepared those godforsaken chocolate croissants she absolutely did not love. "Nice of you to join us, Ms. Franklyn," Dr. Richardson said without looking up from her microscope. She was 70, brilliant, and had exactly 0 patience for tardiness, hangovers, or what she called biological distractions. "Traffic," Scarlett lied, sliding onto her stool and pulling on latex gloves. "Traffic smells like expensive cologne and alpha pheromones, apparently." Across the lab, her research partner Cameron, a beta with the survival instincts of a lemming, choked on his coffee. "Oh my God, are you still seeing that guy? The one who bought you at the auction." "He didn't buy me," Scarlett said through gritted teeth, adjusting her microscope more aggressively than necessary. He bought a date for charity. A date that's lasted 17 days, Cameron pointed out. That's not a date, that's a relationship. It's casual. Casual doesn't look at you the way he did when he picked you up last week. I saw him through the window. The man looked like he wanted to fight everyone in the building for breathing your air. Dr. Richardson made a noise that might have been amusement. The Columbus boy, old money pretending to be new money. His father nearly destroyed the family empire over a bonded Omega. Scarlett's hand stilled. What? Jefferson Columbus S.R., the older woman continued, finally looking up. Bonded to an Omega named Catherine back in the 90s. When she died in childbirth, their second child, I believe, he had a complete breakdown. Couldn't run the business, couldn't function. They almost lost everything. She peered at Scarlett over her glasses. The son watched it happen, drew his own conclusions about the dangers of bonding, from what I understand. Something cold settled in Scarlett's stomach. Jefferson had mentioned his mother once, in passing, during one of their post-sex conversations that weren't supposed to mean anything. He'd said she died when he was young, said it flatly, like he was reading from a report. He hadn't mentioned the rest. That's, Scarlett started, then stopped, unsure what she was trying to say. Tragic, Dr. Richardson supplied. Also irrelevant to your protein synthesis analysis, which is due Friday and currently looks like it was done by a caffeinated squirrel. Cameron, who'd been watching this exchange like it was a tennis match, leaned closer once Dr. Richardson returned to her own work. So you're sleeping with a commitment-phobic billionaire alpha who's traumatized by his parents' bond. That's not a red flag, that's an entire communist parade. It's not like that. What's it like? Scarlett thought about 17 nights. Thought about Jefferson's hands, his commands, the way he held her afterward like he was afraid she'd dissolve if he loosened his grip. Thought about how he never asked her to stay until last night, how he never talked about feelings or futures or anything beyond the present moment. Thought about how she was supposed to be the smart one, the one who knew better, the one who counseled other Omegas about exactly this kind of situation. Temporary, she said finally. It's temporary. Cameron didn't look convinced, but he had the good sense to drop it. Her phone buzzed during lunch. A text from an unknown number, though she knew exactly who it was. Jefferson had a new phone every few weeks, something about security and cryptocurrency paranoia. Dinner tonight, my place, 8 p.m. Not a question, never a question with him. She should say no, should establish boundaries, create distance, remind him that she had a life that didn't revolve around his schedule and his bed and his devastating smile. Can't study group. 3 dots appeared immediately, disappeared, reappeared. Cancel it. That's not how doctoral programs work. That's not how I work. Scarlett stared at her phone, torn between irritation and something that felt uncomfortably like anticipation. This was the game they played, his commands, her resistance. the eventual compromise that somehow always ended with her in his penthouse. 9:30, and I'm leaving by midnight. We'll see. She should have been annoyed by his presumption. Instead, she spent the next 8 hours distracted, watching the clock, pretending she wasn't already imagining what he'd do when she walked through his door. Study group ran late because Jennifer couldn't grasp the concept of amino acid sequences, which meant Scarlett didn't arrive at Jefferson's building until nearly 10. The doorman, who knew her by name now, which was its own kind of problem, waved her through with a knowing smile that made her want to sink through the marble floor. The private elevator rose silently to the penthouse, giving her 60 floors to question her life choices. She'd meant this to be one night, a charity date that got out of hand, a moment of weakness with a man who was everything she shouldn't want. She'd meant to satisfy her curiosity, scratch the itch, and move on with her carefully planned life. Instead, she'd somehow become a regular fixture in Jefferson Columbus's routine, like his morning workout or his afternoon market analysis, or whatever it was billionaires did when they weren't buying entire city blocks. The elevator opened directly into his living room, because of course it did. Jefferson didn't believe in hallways or privacy or any barrier between him and what he wanted. He was waiting by the window, silhouetted against the city lights, wearing charcoal slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up to reveal those hypnotic tattoos. He'd clearly showered recently. His hair was still damp, curling at the ends. "You're late," he said without turning around. "You'll survive." "Will I?" Now he turned, and the look in his eyes made her breath catch. "I'm starting to wonder." There was something different in his voice tonight, something raw beneath the usual command. Scarlett set her bag down slowly, suddenly aware of the tension crackling between them. "Jefferson, do you know what I did today?" he asked, cutting her off. "I sat through 4 hours of meetings and couldn't concentrate on a single word. I have a $50 million deal that needs my signature, and all I could think about was whether you'd actually show up tonight." "I said I would." "You say a lot of things." He moved toward her with that predatory grace that made her pulse spike. "You say it's temporary. You say it's casual. You say you're leaving by midnight." "Like, we'll leave by." "Stay still," he commanded, and her body obeyed before her mind could protest, freezing her in place as he closed the distance between them. "And take it. Take what I'm about to tell you, even though it terrifies me to say it." Her heart was racing now. "Jeff." "I don't want temporary," he said, his hands framing her face with devastating gentleness. "I don't want casual. I want you here every morning and every night. I want to know about your terrible lab partner and your sadistic advisor and whatever the hell amino acid sequences are. I want," he stopped, jaw clenching. "I want things I swore I'd never want." Scarlett's world tilted. This wasn't supposed to happen. This wasn't part of the plan. Jefferson Columbus didn't do feelings, didn't do vulnerability, didn't do anything that couldn't be quantified on a spreadsheet. "You don't mean that," she whispered. "I never say things I don't mean." His thumbs brushed across her cheekbones. "Stay, not just tonight. Stay." And there it was, the cliff edge she'd been approaching for 17 nights, the moment where she had to decide whether to step back to safety or jump into freefall with a man who just admitted he was as terrified as she was. What would you do if someone who'd sworn never to commit suddenly asked you to stay? Drop a comment below. I want to hear your thoughts. I need time, Scarlett managed. This is you're asking me to. I'm asking you to take a chance on someone who's never been worth the risk, Jefferson said quietly. I'm asking you to stay still while I figure out how to be what you need. I'm asking you to take everything I have to give, even though I'm not sure it's enough. His words landed like stones in still water, rippling outward through every defense she'd built. The study said your father nearly destroyed everything when your mother died, she said, watching his expression shudder. That you watched it happen, that you learned to never let anyone close. Enough to hurt you like that. You've been researching me. Dr. Richardson mentioned it, She's right. Jefferson's hands dropped from her face and she immediately missed their warmth. I watched my father fall apart, watched him choose grief over responsibility, emotion over logic. I swore I'd never be that weak. Love isn't weakness. It is when it destroys you. He turned away, shoulders rigid. When it takes a man who built an empire and reduces him to someone who can't get out of bed for months, who can't look at his own children because they remind him of what he lost. Scarlett's chest ached. Jefferson. But apparently, he continued, voice rough, I'm my father's son after all. Because despite every promise I made myself, despite every safeguard I put in place, I'm standing here asking an Omega I met 17 days ago to upend my entire fucking life. The silence stretched between them, heavy with everything they weren't saying. I should go, Scarlett said finally, even as everything in her screamed to stay. Yeah, Jefferson agreed, not turning around. You probably should. She made it to the elevator, made it inside, her finger hovering over the button for the ground floor. Stay still and take it, she thought. Take the risk. Take the chance. Take the man who's offering you everything he swore he'd never give. The elevator doors started to close. Scarlett's hand shot out, stopping them. One condition, she called out, stepping back into the penthouse. Jefferson spun around, hope and disbelief warring on his face. No more secrets, no more walls. If I'm staying, I get all of you, the good, the damaged, the terrified, all of it. He crossed the room in 3 strides, pulling her against him with bruising intensity. Deal. And I'm not quitting my program. Wouldn't dream of asking. And those chocolate croissants are objectively mediocre. You're objectively a liar, but I'll allow it. She laughed against his chest, feeling the tension drain from both of them. This is insane. Completely, he agreed, tilting her face up to meet his gaze. Stay anyway. So she did. The thing about moving into a penthouse with a commitment-phobic billionaire was that nobody prepared you for the sheer weirdness of it all. Day 3 of staying. Scarlett discovered Jefferson had an entire room dedicated to server racks for his cryptocurrency mining operation. It hummed like a mechanical beehive and was kept at exactly 68 degrees. "You're literally heating the planet to make imaginary money," she'd said, standing in the doorway with her coffee. "It's not imaginary. It's cryptographically secured." "That's just imaginary with extra steps." He'd responded by pressing her against the nearest wall and kissing her until she forgot what they were arguing about, which she suspected was his primary conflict resolution strategy. Day 7. His chef quit after Scarlett tried to help with breakfast and accidentally set off the fire suppression system making toast. Jefferson had laughed, actually laughed, the kind that crinkled his eyes and made him look years younger, and ordered takeout like a normal person for the first time in probably a decade. Day 12. She woke up to find him sitting at his desk at 4 a.m., staring at his laptop screen with the kind of intensity usually reserved for hostage negotiations. "Can't sleep?" she'd asked, padding over in one of his shirts. "Can't think," he'd corrected. "You're in my head, constantly. It's extremely inconvenient for market analysis." "Want me to leave?" "Absolutely not." He'd pulled her into his lap, burying his face against her neck. Just needed to complain about it. It was those moments, the vulnerable, unguarded ones, that terrified her most, because they made it real, made it impossible to pretend this was still just excellent sex with an expiration date. Made her realize she was falling in love with him. Which was, objectively, a terrible idea. Week 3 brought their first real fight. It started, as most disasters did, with good intentions and poor execution. Scarlett came home. When had she started thinking of the penthouse as home? To find Jefferson in his office with 3 other men in expensive suits, all studying a presentation on his massive monitor. "The Henderson building is undervalued by at least 30%, one of them was saying. "If we move now." "The Henderson building," Scarlett interrupted from the doorway, "houses the Omega Resource Center where I volunteer. You know, the place where we met." 4 pairs of eyes turned to her. Jefferson's expression was carefully neutral, which was never a good sign. "Scarlett, this is a private meeting." "You're buying the building to tear it down," she said flatly, pieces clicking together with horrible clarity. "That's what undervalued means in real estate speak. Buy low, demolish, build high, sell higher." "It's a good investment," one of the suits offered weakly. "It's a community center that serves 300 Omegas a month," Scarlett snapped. "Omegas who can't afford private health care, who need education resources, who need somewhere safe to go when they're alphas." She stopped, looking directly at Jefferson. "You were going to kick them out." "We'd relocate the services." "Where?" "To some basement in a cheaper neighborhood. To a building without the donations and infrastructure that took years to build." Her voice was rising now, weeks of unspoken tension bubbling to the surface. "This is what you do, isn't it? You see value and you take it, and you don't think about the people whose lives you're disrupting because they're just numbers on a spreadsheet." Jefferson stood slowly, his jaw tight. "Gentlemen, we'll continue this later." The suits fled with the survival instincts of people who recognized a domestic argument brewing. Smart men. The door closed behind them. With a soft click that felt deafening, You don't understand how business works, Jefferson said, his voice dangerously calm. I understand perfectly. You're the one who doesn't understand what that building means. I understand you're making this personal when it's not. Everything is personal, Scarlett threw her hands up. That's the difference between us. You think you can separate business from humanity, profit from people, but you can't. Or you shouldn't. Those omegas in that building, I was one of them. 3 years ago, when my heat suppressants failed and I couldn't afford the emergency care, when my own family told me I was a burden, that building saved my life. Something shifted in Jefferson's expression. You never told me that. You never asked. The fight drained out of her suddenly, leaving exhaustion in its wake. You never ask about my past, about why I do what I do. You want me to stay, but you don't want to know the parts of me that aren't. Convenient. That's not fair. Isn't it? She moved to the window, looking out at the city glittering below. You want me in your bed and at your breakfast table, but you keep me out of your business, out of the decisions that matter. You want all of me, but you'll only give me pieces of you. The silence stretched between them, heavy with truth. My mother died in that building, Jefferson said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. Scarlett turned slowly. What? The Henderson building. Before it was the Omega Resource Center, it was Henderson Memorial Hospital. He wasn't looking at her, his gaze fixed on something distant. She went into labor early with my sister. Complications. They couldn't. The doctors said it was fast, too fast. Jefferson. I was 12, he continued, each word seemingly dragged from somewhere deep. My father and I were in the waiting room. He was reading me some book about explorers, trying to distract me. Then the doctor came out and I watched my father's entire world end in the span of a sentence. Scarlett's throat tightened. I'm sorry I didn't. I've avoided that building for 23 years, Jefferson admitted. Haven't been within 3 blocks of it. When it came up as an acquisition opportunity, I thought, he laughed bitterly, I thought I could finally erase it, turn it into something clean and profitable, something that couldn't hurt anyone anymore. She crossed the room, taking his hands in hers. They were shaking slightly, which might have been the most vulnerable thing she'd ever witnessed from him. You can't erase pain by demolishing buildings, she said gently. Trust me, I've tried. After my family, she took a breath. After they rejected me, I spent a year trying to erase every reminder of them. Changed my number, blocked them on everything, threw out photos. It didn't help. The hurt doesn't live in buildings or pictures. It lives in us. Then how do you make it stop? You don't, you. Just, she searched for the right words. You build something new alongside it, something that doesn't erase the pain but makes it worth carrying. Jefferson pulled her against him, his face buried in her hair. Keep the building, he said quietly. I'll make sure they have funding for the next decade, whatever they need. You don't have to. Yes, I do. He pulled back to look at her, and there was something raw in his eyes. You're right. I kept you separate from my business because business is where I'm in control, where emotions don't matter, where I don't have to feel anything. And with me. With you, I feel everything. His hand cupped her face. It's terrifying, But I'm done pretending I can compartmentalize you. If you're staying, you get all of it. The business, the decisions, the parts of me I've been hiding. No more walls. No more walls, he agreed. But you have to do the same. Tell me about your family, about why you ended up in that building 3 years ago, about all the parts of you I've been too scared to ask about. So she did. They stayed up until dawn, trading stories in the darkness. Hers about a family who saw her Omega status as a liability. His about a father who never recovered from loss. About her struggling through grad school while volunteering to help others like her. About him building an empire to avoid ever being as powerless as he'd felt at 12. About all the ways they'd been broken before they found each other. Your turn for a question, Scarlett said, as the first light of morning began painting the sky pink. Jefferson was quiet for a moment, his fingers tracing patterns on her arm. Why'd you kiss me that first night? At dinner. You made the first move. She smiled against his chest. Because you looked at me like I was the scariest thing you'd ever seen. And I thought, anyone who's that terrified of wanting something probably needs it more than they know. Was I that obvious? You bid $50,000 at a charity auction and then looked like you wanted to throw yourself out a window. Yeah, you were obvious. He laughed, the sound rumbling through his chest. Best $50,000 I ever spent. You're such a romantic. I'm learning. He tilted her face up, his expression serious. I love you, Scarlett Franklyn. I know it's too soon and too fast and too complicated, but I'm done pretending I don't. Her heart stuttered. Jefferson. You don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know. But she was already saying it, the words tumbling out like they'd been waiting for permission. I love you too, you impossible man. Even though you're terrible at feelings and you tried to demolish my favorite building, and you make me want to strangle you at least twice a day. Only twice. I'll have to up my game. She kissed him then, tasting coffee and promises and the beginning of something that felt like forever. The call came 3 days later, at 2 in the morning. Scarlett barely heard the phone over Jefferson's snoring. He denied he snored, but it was like sleeping next to a congested grizzly bear, and fumbled for it on the nightstand. Unknown number. She almost declined, then something made her answer. Ms. Franklyn, a woman's voice, professional but strained. This is Rebecca Chen from the Omega Resource Center. I'm sorry to call so late, but we have a situation. Scarlett sat up, instantly alert. What's wrong? There's been an incident. One of our clients, you know Imani Robinson. Ice flooded Scarlett's veins. Imani was 19, brilliant, with a full scholarship to study engineering. She was also bonded to an alpha who'd become progressively more controlling over the past 6 months. What happened? She came to the center tonight with injuries, bad ones. She's stable, but Ms. Franklyn, Rebecca's voice cracked. Her alpha followed her. He's outside now with some of his pack. They're demanding we release her into his custody. We've called the police, but you know how they are with bonded pairs. Scarlett was already out of bed, pulling on clothes. I'm coming. Don't let him in and don't let Imani leave. I'll be there in 15 minutes. What's wrong? Jefferson asked groggily, sitting up. Omega in danger. Her bonded Alpha is at the center trying to take her back. She yanked a sweatshirt over her head. I have to go. I'm coming with you. Jefferson, this isn't the building where my mother died and the woman I love works. He was already dressing, moving with the kind of efficiency she'd seen in his business mode. Yeah, I'm definitely coming. Besides, you might need someone who can afford a really good lawyer. They made it in 12 minutes. Jefferson's driver breaking several traffic laws with the kind of immunity that came from serving the very wealthy. The scene outside the Henderson building was chaos. The scene outside the Henderson building looked like someone had decided to stage a very ugly episode of a reality show about toxic masculinity. 4 alphas, all wearing the kind of designer athleisure that screamed, I have money and anger management issues, were positioned around the building's entrance. The one in front, presumably Imani's bonded mate, was a tall man with the kind of chiseled jawline that would have been attractive if not for the rage distorting his features. That's Derek Robinson, Scarlett said quietly as they approached. Tech executive. His family has money going back 3 generations. He bonded with Imani at a corporate mixer 6 months ago. Consensual? Jefferson asked, his voice dangerously calm. At the time, yes, but bonds can be complicated. She didn't need to explain further. They both knew how biology could override choice, how a bonding bite could create chains stronger than any legal contract. 2 police officers stood nearby, looking deeply uncomfortable with the whole situation. One of them, a beta woman, who looked barely out of the academy, spotted Scarlett and visibly relaxed. Ms. Franklyn, thank God. Maybe you can talk some sense into Mr. Robinson. He's insisting his bonded Omega is being held against her will. She's being protected, Scarlett corrected sharply. There's a difference. Derek's head snapped toward her and his eyes, dilated with alpha aggression, locked onto hers. You're the one who's been filling my Omega's head with this independence bullshit. Your Omega, Scarlett repeated slowly, has a name and a mind and the right to safety. She's safe with me. She's mine. She's no one's property, Jefferson cut in, and his voice carried the kind of authority that made even Derek pause. Regardless of bond status. Derek's gaze shifted to Jefferson, recognition flickering. Columbus, I should have known. You're the one funding this place, aren't you? Probably sleeping with this little Omega activist, thinking you're some kind of hero. I'm not a hero, Jefferson said evenly, moving to stand slightly in front of Scarlett in a gesture that was pure alpha instinct. I'm just someone with significantly better lawyers than you, and security cameras. What? The building has cameras, Jefferson continued, pulling out his phone. I upgraded them 2 days ago, very high definition, very admissible in court. He tapped his screen, then turned it toward Derek. This footage, for example, from earlier tonight, that's you, isn't it? Grabbing Imani by the arm. And that, yes, that's definitely you throwing her against the car. Derek's face went white. That was private. The parking lot is public property, as is the sidewalk where you struck her the second time. Jefferson's smile was cold enough to freeze nitrogen. But please continue making demands. My legal team loves billable hours. One of Derek's pack members touched his arm. Derek, man, maybe we should. Shut up, Derek snarled, but his bravado was cracking. The bond I have. Rights. You have the right to remain silent, the beta officer said, finally finding her spine. And I strongly suggest you exercise it. Mr. Columbus, can you send that footage to my email? Already done, along with copies to the DA's office and every major news outlet in the city. Jefferson slipped his phone back into his pocket. Because I'm petty like that. Derek looked like he wanted to attack someone, probably Jefferson, possibly all of them. But the presence of police and cameras and the sudden realization that he'd severely miscalculated kept him frozen. This isn't over, he finally spat. Actually, a new voice called from the building's entrance. It really is. Everyone turned. Imani stood in the doorway, flanked by Rebecca and two other staff members. Even from a distance, Scarlett could see the bruises on her face, the way she held her left arm protectively. But her voice was steady, her spine straight. I'm filing for bond dissolution, Imani announced. Medical documentation shows a pattern of escalating abuse. I have witnesses, evidence, and as of 10 minutes ago, a restraining order. You can't. The bond can be legally dissolved in cases of documented abuse, Imani continued, her voice gaining strength. I looked it up. Ms. Franklyn helped me find a lawyer, a really good one. She glanced at Jefferson. One who apparently works for you now and is doing this pro bono because she hates assholes who hurt omegas. Jefferson nodded slightly. Best employment decision I made all week. Derek's world was visibly collapsing. Imani, please, I love you. You love control, she said quietly. You love ownership. You never loved me. She touched her neck where the bonding mark would be. This mark doesn't give you the right to hurt me. It never did. The police moved in then, and Derek, finally realizing he'd lost, didn't resist as they escorted him and his pack members away from the building. His threats echoed back, but they sounded hollow now, the desperate rage of someone watching their power evaporate. As soon as they were gone, Imani's composure cracked. She stumbled, and Scarlett was there instantly, catching her, holding her as she sobbed. I've got you, Scarlett murmured. You're safe now, I've got you. I was so scared, Imani gasped between sobs. I thought he was going to kill me. But he didn't. You got out. You were brave enough to leave. Jefferson watched them, something complicated crossing his face. This was Scarlett's world, the messy, painful, vital work of helping omegas escape situations that could kill them. It wasn't clean. It wasn't profitable. It was just necessary. We should get you inside, Rebecca said gently. Get those injuries properly documented. As they helped Imani back into the building, Jefferson caught Scarlett's arm. You do this often, the middle of the night rescues. Often enough, she studied his expression, having second thoughts about dating an Omega activist. Having thoughts about hiring a security team for you, he corrected. Derek Robinson isn't the only alpha out there who doesn't handle rejection well. I can take care of myself. I know you can. His hand cupped her face, but maybe you don't have to do it alone anymore. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed, then buzzed again, and again. She pulled it out, frowning. What the hell? Text after text was flooding in, from other volunteers, from former clients, from Omegas she'd helped over the years. Did you see the news? OMG Scarlett, you're everywhere. Is this real? Please tell me this is real. What news? Jefferson asked, pulling out his own phone. His expression shifted as he scrolled, something between surprise and resignation crossing his features. Well, we're trending. What? He turned his phone toward her. The headline was from the city's largest news site, posted 15 minutes ago. Billionaire, Jefferson Columbus confronts. Abusive Alpha funds Omega Protection Initiative. Below it was a video, clearly taken by someone in the crowd, showing the entire confrontation. Jefferson's casual destruction of Derek's threats, his promise to expose the abuse, the footage of Imani's injuries. And in the comments, thousands upon thousands of responses. Finally, a rich alpha using his privilege for good. This is what allyship looks like. Jefferson Columbus just became the most attractive man alive. Oh my God, Scarlett breathed. My PR team is going to have an aneurysm, Jefferson said, but he was smiling. They've spent years crafting my image as a ruthless business titan. This is very off-brand. You could have stopped this. You could have handled it quietly, kept yourself out of it. And let Derek think he could intimidate his way out of consequences. Jefferson shook his head. No, some things are more important than image. He looked at her intently. You're more important. This work is more important. Scarlett's phone rang then. Dr. Richardson, of all people. Ms. Franklyn, her advisor said without preamble, I'm watching you and your billionaire boyfriend take down abusive alphas on the internet when you should be sleeping before tomorrow's presentation. I can explain. I'm not calling to scold you. Well, not only to scold you. A pause. I'm calling to tell you that my wife, who sits on the board of the National Omega Advocacy Foundation, just pledged $2 million to the Resource Center. Apparently, watching privileged alphas actually give a damn inspired her. Dr. Richardson, your presentation is still due tomorrow, but another pause, softer this time. I'm proud of you, Scarlett. What you did tonight, what you do every night matters. Don't forget that when you're drowning in amino acid sequences. The call ended and Scarlett stood there, slightly stunned, watching donations flood into the Resource Center's website in real time. Watching the story spread across social media. Watching other Omegas share their own stories of abuse and escape. You started something, Jefferson said quietly. We started something, she corrected. He pulled her close, and for a moment they just stood there in the parking lot as dawn began to break, watching the city wake up to a story about an Omega who fought back and an Alpha who fought beside her. "I need to stay," Scarlett said finally. "Help process Imani's case, make sure she has everything she needs, coordinate with the lawyer." "I know," Jefferson kissed her forehead. "I'll send the car back for you, and Scarlett. Yeah, I love you, even when you're starting revolutions at 2 a.m. She watched him leave, then turned back to the building, the place where his mother had died, where she'd been saved, where they'd just helped another Omega escape, and felt something settle in her chest. This was right, this was real. This was. Her phone rang again, unknown number again. A Ms. Franklyn, a man's voice this time, smooth and professional. "My name is Thomas Wellington. I represent a client who's very interested in speaking with you about Mr. Columbus." Warning bells went off. "Who's your client?" "Someone who believes you should know the truth about Jefferson Columbus before you get in any deeper." A pause. "Someone who was there the night his mother died. Someone who knows what really happened in that hospital room." "I'm not interested in." "Your boyfriend's father didn't just have a breakdown after his bonded Omega died, Miss Franklyn. He was investigated for her murder." The world tilted. "That's a lie." "Is it? Ask yourself why Jefferson avoids that building so religiously. Why he spent his entire adult life avoiding bonds. Why he jumped at the chance to demolish the place where his mother took her last breath." The voice was relentless now. "Meet with me. Hear the full story. And then decide if the man you're sleeping with is really the hero everyone thinks he is." The call ended. Scarlett stood frozen in the parking lot as the sun rose over the city, holding her phone like it might explode, her perfect morning shattered by 6 impossible words. Investigated for her murder. Scarlett didn't tell Jefferson about the call. She told herself it was because she didn't believe it, because it was obviously some tabloid journalist or rival businessman trying to dig up dirt now that Jefferson was trending as the internet's favorite billionaire alpha. She told herself it was because she trusted him. She told herself a lot of things that didn't explain why she spent the next 3 days quietly researching Catherine Columbus's death while Jefferson was at work. The official story was simple: complications during childbirth, hemorrhaging, emergency C-section to save the baby, Jefferson's sister, who died anyway 2 hours later in the NICU. Tragic but not uncommon, especially 23 years ago. But when Scarlett dug deeper, using academic databases and old newspaper archives, she found the gaps. A police investigation that lasted 6 weeks, hospital staff who refused to comment, a settlement paid out to Catherine's family, Jefferson's maternal grandparents, that seemed excessive for a straightforward medical malpractice case. And one line, buried in an article from a medical ethics journal published 2 years after the death. The Columbus case raised questions about alpha interference in Omega medical care, particularly during vulnerable periods such as labor and delivery. "You've been quiet," Jefferson said that night over dinner, takeout sushi, because his new chef was still traumatized by the fire suppression incident. "Just thinking about my presentation," Scarlett lied, pushing California rolls around her plate. The one that was 3 days ago. The next one. He studied her with those two perceptive eyes. You're a terrible liar, you know that. So you keep telling me. Scarlett. He set down his chopsticks. What's wrong? She should tell him. Should ask directly about his mother, about the investigation, about everything. But something held her back, some instinct that said once she opened this door, everything would change. Nothing's wrong, she said. I'm just tired. He didn't believe her. She could see it in the way his jaw tightened, the way his alpha responded to her obvious distress. But he didn't push, and somehow that made it worse. Her phone buzzed, a text from the unknown number. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., Perkins Coffee on 5th, come alone. Work thing, Jefferson asked too casually. Just Cameron being dramatic about our lab results. Another lie. They were stacking up like kindling, waiting for a match. She went to the meeting. Thomas Wellington was exactly what she expected. Mid-50s, expensive suit, the kind of lawyer who specialized in making problems disappear for wealthy clients. He was already seated in a corner. Booth when she arrived, 2 coffees waiting. Ms. Franklyn, thank you for coming. He gestured to the seat across from him. I know this must be difficult. You said you had information about Jefferson's mother. Scarlett remained standing. So talk. Direct, I like that. He slid a folder across the table. Catherine Columbus didn't die from childbirth complications. She died from a forced bonding bite that went septic. Scarlett's stomach dropped. What? Jefferson Columbus S.R. bit her during labor, against her explicit wishes, documented in her medical chart. The bite became infected. By the time the doctors realized what was happening, the infection had spread to her bloodstream. She died of sepsis 3 hours after delivery. That's, Scarlett sank into the booth, her legs suddenly unreliable. That's murder. Legally, manslaughter maybe, but the Columbus family has excellent lawyers. Wellington tapped the folder. It's all in here. Medical records, witness statements. From nurses who were fired shortly after giving testimony. The settlement agreement that included an NDA. Why are you telling me this? Because my client believes you deserve to know who you're sleeping with. He leaned forward. Jefferson Columbus watched his father kill his mother through sheer alpha arrogance. And instead of learning that bonds need consent and respect, he learned that bonds are dangerous, that omegas are dangerous. Jefferson isn't like his father. Isn't he? Wellington's smile was knowing. He controls everything in his life with an iron fist. He built an empire on the principle that emotions are liabilities. He spent 17 nights with you before he could even admit he had feelings. And now, conveniently, right when he's getting positive press for defending omegas, he suddenly becomes the perfect alpha boyfriend. You're twisting everything. I'm telling you the truth, a truth his family spent millions to bury. He stood, leaving the folder on the table. Read it. Decide for yourself. But ask yourself this. If Jefferson really believes in omega autonomy, why didn't he tell you about his mother himself? Why let you find out from a stranger in a coffee shop? He left before she could respond. Scarlett sat alone in the booth, staring at the folder like it might bite her. Everything in her screamed not to open it, to trust Jefferson, to believe in the man who'd held her through nightmares and funded Omega protection programs, and looked at her like she hung the moon. But she'd built her entire advocacy career on the principle that Omegas deserved the truth, even when it hurt. Especially when it hurt. She opened the folder. 2 hours later, Scarlett walked into Jefferson's penthouse with photocopies of medical records that detailed exactly how Catherine Columbus had died. Jefferson was on a call, pacing by the windows, but he ended it immediately when he saw her face. "Scarlett, what? Tell me about your mother." Her voice was steady, which felt like a miracle. "Tell me how she really died." The color drained from his face. "Who told you? Does it matter?" "Yes, it fucking matters." He stopped, visibly forcing himself to calm. "Someone approached you. Who was it?" "A lawyer named Thomas Wellington. He gave me this." She held up the folder. Medical records, witness statements, a very detailed account of how your father forced a bonding bite on your mother during labor, how it got infected, how she died of sepsis while doctors tried to save her. Jefferson's expression shuddered completely, the careful mask she hadn't seen in weeks slamming into place. "And you believed him?" "I believed the medical records, the witness testimonies, the settlement your family paid to make it all go away." She threw the folder on his desk. "What I don't understand is why you didn't tell me yourself." "Because it's complicated." "Bullshit. You knew what I do. You knew my entire life is built around protecting Omegas from exactly this kind of alpha violence. And you just, what? Thought you'd wait for the right moment to mention your father murdered your mother." "He didn't murder her." Jefferson's control finally cracked. "He was trying to save her. She was dying, the baby was dying." He panicked. "He bit her without consent during the most vulnerable moment of her life," Scarlett said, her voice shaking now. "That's not panic. That's assault." "You don't understand." "Then make me understand." She was shouting now, weeks of buried fears exploding outward. "Make me understand why you kept this from me. Make me understand why I had to hear it from some stranger instead of from you. Make me understand how I'm supposed to trust you when you've been lying by omission this entire time." "I wasn't ready," Jefferson roared back. "I wasn't ready to see you look at me the way you're looking at me right now, like I'm him, like I'm my father, like I'm capable of." His voice broke. "I spent my entire life trying to be different from him, trying to prove I'd never let instinct override choice, never let my alpha make decisions for someone else. And you're standing here looking at me like I've already failed." The silence that followed was deafening. "I'm not looking at you like you're your father," Scarlett said finally, quietly. "I'm looking at you like you're someone who doesn't trust me with the truth, who'd rather let me find out from hostile lawyers than be vulnerable enough to tell me yourself." "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" She grabbed her bag. "You said no more walls. You promised me all of you, the good, the damaged, the terrified. But the moment something really difficult came up, you shut me out." "Where are you going?" "I don't know." She headed for the elevator. Somewhere I can think without feeling like everything I believed about us might be built on things you chose not to say. Scarlett, wait. But the elevator doors were already closing. She went to Cameron's apartment because it was the only place she could think to go. He took one look at her face and wordlessly handed her his emergency vodka and a blanket. "Do I need to kill a billionaire?" he asked after she'd explained everything. "I don't know." Scarlett stared at the ceiling, wrapped in the blanket like a burrito. "Is it wrong that I'm angrier about him not telling me than about what actually happened?" "No, because what happened wasn't his fault, but choosing not to tell you, that was a choice. He said he wasn't ready. And you're supposed to just wait around until he decides you're worthy of the full truth." Cameron shook his head. "That's not how partnerships work. That's not how love works." Scarlett's phone had been buzzing non-stop, calls and texts from Jefferson, each more desperate than the last. She'd been ignoring them, but now she scrolled through the messages. "Please come back, we need to talk. I'm sorry, I should have told you. I was scared, I'm still scared, but you deserve better than my cowardice. I love you. Even if you hate me right now, I love you." And then, sent just 5 minutes ago, "I know who hired Wellington, and you need to know too." She called him. He answered on the first ring. "Scarlett." "Who hired him?" A pause. "Derek Robinson, Imani's ex. Apparently he has friends in low places and decided revenge was better served by destroying my credibility than by accepting criminal charges." "Derek," Scarlett sat up. "But how would he even know?" "About my mother, public records if you know where to look. The Omega advocacy world is small. He probably asked around, found someone willing to dig." Jefferson's voice was rough, like he'd been shouting or crying or both. "He wanted to hurt me by hurting us, and I gave him the ammunition by not telling you first." Scarlett processed this, pieces clicking into place. So this whole thing, Wellington, the medical records, the dramatic revelation, it was all designed to drive a wedge between us. "Yeah, and it worked." "Because you didn't tell me the truth," she said, anger reigniting. "Derek couldn't have used this against us if you'd just been honest from the start." "I know." He sounded defeated. "I know, and I'm sorry, and I don't know how to fix this except to tell you everything now, even if it's too late." "I'm listening." So he told her. About being 12 years old in a hospital waiting room, reading about explorers with his father. About the doctor coming out with blood on her scrubs, saying they'd done everything they could. About his father's face, the moment his Alpha realized what he'd done, how he tried to force a bond to save his mate and killed her instead. About the investigation, the questions, being asked if his father had ever hurt his mother before. About not understanding why everyone was asking if his father was a monster when all he'd been was desperate. About growing up, watching his father drown in guilt and grief, watching the Columbus Empire nearly collapse, watching his older brother step in at 18 to save the business because their father couldn't function. About promising himself at 12 years old that he'd never let his alpha instincts control him like that, never put someone he loved in danger, Never risk creating the same tragedy. And then I met you, Jefferson said quietly, and every promise I made myself became impossible. Because my alpha wants to protect you, possess you, bind you to me so thoroughly that nothing could ever take you away. And I'm terrified, fucking terrified, that someday I'll be in a situation where I have to choose between what you want and what my instincts scream at me to do. And I'll choose wrong, like he did. Scarlett listened to his breathing on the other end of the line, to the raw honesty in every word, and felt something in her chest crack open. "You're not your father," she said. "You don't know that." "Yes, I do, because your father forced a bite to save his mate. You spent 17 nights fighting your instincts to protect mine." She wiped at her eyes. "You're so busy being afraid of becoming him that you can't see you're already different." "Scarlett, but you should have told me." Her voice hardened. "Not because I'm fragile or because I need protection from the truth, but because I deserved to know. Because partnerships don't work when one person decides what the other can handle." "I know you're right, I'm sorry." "Are you still at the penthouse?" "Yeah." "Stay there, I'm coming over." She stood, grabbing her jacket. "And Jefferson, we're going to have a very long conversation about trust and honesty and all the ways you're going to have to work to earn mine back." "I'll do whatever it takes." "Good, because I'm not going anywhere. Even when you piss me off, even when you're scared, even when you think protecting me means keeping secrets, I'm not going anywhere, but you have to let me in, all the way in, or this doesn't work." "All the way in," he agreed. "I promise." She hung up and looked at Cameron, who'd been unabashedly eavesdropping. "So," he asked, "are we killing the billionaire or keeping him?" "Keeping him," she said, "but he's on probation." "Fair enough. Want me to come with? Provide moral support? Threaten him with lab equipment?" She smiled despite everything. "I've got this, but thanks." "Hey, Scarlett," Cameron called as she headed for the door. "For what it's worth, a guy who's that scared of hurting you probably won't. It's the ones who aren't scared that you have to watch out for." She thought about that the entire drive back to the penthouse. Jefferson was waiting when the elevator opened, looking like he hadn't slept in days. The moment he saw her, relief flooded his face. "You came back." "I said I would." She stepped into the penthouse, setting down her bag. "But we need to establish some ground rules." "Anything." "First, no more secrets. I don't care how scared you are or how much you think you're protecting me. If it's important, I need to know." "Agreed." "Second, therapy. For both of us, but especially you. Because you're carrying around 23 years of trauma and I'm good, but I'm not equipped to handle that alone." He nodded. "I'll make an appointment tomorrow." Third, she moved closer until they were inches apart. "You have to trust that I can handle the truth, that I'm strong enough to know the worst parts of your history and still choose you. Because I do choose you, Jefferson, even with all of this. But I need you to choose me back by being honest." "I do choose you." His hands came up to frame her face. "Every day, every minute, I choose you so completely it terrifies me." "Good," she kissed him, soft and fierce. "Now tell me what you're thinking right now. No filters, no walls, just the truth. He pulled back slightly, his eyes searching hers. I'm thinking that Derek Robinson is going to spend the next decade in legal hell for trying to hurt you. I'm thinking that I want to find every person who ever made you doubt your worth and systematically destroy their credit scores. I'm thinking that I want to bite you so badly it makes my teeth ache. And the fact that I just told you that instead of pretending I don't is probably progress. Scarlett's breath caught. Jefferson. I'm not asking, he said quickly. I know we're not there. I know bonds are complicated and traumatic and I might never deserve to give you one. I'm just being honest, like you asked. She studied him. This complicated, damaged, infuriating man who'd somehow become essential to her existence, who'd fought his instincts for her, who'd made mistakes and owned them, who was standing here offering her every raw truth he'd spent a lifetime hiding. Ask me in 6 months, she said, when we've done the therapy and worked through the trust issues and proven we can handle the messy parts. Ask me then, and I'll think about it. Hope flickered in his eyes. Yeah, but Jefferson. She pressed a hand to his chest, feeling his heart racing under her palm. If you ever bite me without explicit consent, if you ever let your alpha override my choice the way your father did to your mother, I will destroy you. Not legally, not financially. I will destroy who you are. Do you understand? I understand. He covered her hand with his. And I promise you on everything I am that will never happen, your choice. Always your choice. Good. She kissed him again, deeper this time. Now take me to bed and remind me why I'm willing to work through all this complicated bullshit. He did. And later, tangled in sheets with dawn approaching, Scarlett realized something. Loving Jefferson Columbus wasn't easy. It was messy and complicated and sometimes infuriating. But it was real. And sometimes, real was worth fighting for. 3 months later, Scarlett stood in the Henderson building, now officially renamed the Catherine Columbus Memorial Center for Omega Advocacy, and watched Jefferson cut the ribbon with hands that only shook slightly. The building had been completely renovated. New medical facilities, expanded counseling services, a legal aid office staffed by the lawyers Jefferson had hired specifically for this purpose. The top floor had been converted into crisis housing for Omegas escaping dangerous situations. And in the lobby, a bronze plaque, in memory of Catherine Columbus, whose death reminded us that every Omega deserves autonomy, respect, and the right to choose their own fate. May this space honor her by protecting those who come after. Your father's here, Scarlett murmured, watching Jefferson Columbus Sr. stand awkwardly near the entrance, flanked by Jefferson's older brother, Christopher. Jefferson's jaw tightened. I know. They hadn't spoken in 3 years, not since Jefferson had confronted his father about the circumstances of his mother's death, not since he'd told him that grief didn't excuse what he'd done. But Jefferson had sent the invitation anyway, and his father had come. Progress, their therapist had called it. Terrifying, Jefferson had corrected. Do you want me to run interference? Scarlett offered. No, I need to. He took a breath. I need to talk to him. She squeezed his hand. I'll be right here if you need me." Jefferson crossed the lobby slowly, and Scarlett watched as father and son faced each other for the first time in years. She couldn't hear what they were saying, but she saw the moment Jefferson Sr's face crumpled, saw him reach for his son, saw Jefferson hesitate before accepting the embrace. Some wounds took time. Some required more than time. They required the courage to face them. "Quite a turnout," Dr. Richardson said, appearing at Scarlett's elbow with a glass of champagne. "Half the city's alpha elite are here, pretending they always cared about Omega rights. They're here because Jefferson made it socially advantageous to care," Scarlett replied. "I'll take performative allyship over active hostility." "Pragmatic, I taught you well." Her advisor studied Jefferson, who was now talking quietly with his father near the plaque. "You're keeping him, then?" "Looks like it." "Good. He's one of the few alphas I've met who actually listens when omegas speak." Dr. Richardson sipped her champagne. "Also, his donations funded 3 new research positions in my department. I'm shallow enough to be influenced by that." Scarlett laughed. "How mercenary of you." "I prefer strategically opportunistic." She paused. "I'm proud of you, Scarlett. This place, what you've built here, what you've helped create, it matters. You're changing lives." "We're changing lives," Scarlett corrected, gesturing around the room. "All of us." Imani appeared then, wearing a sharp pantsuit and a confidence that hadn't existed 3 months ago. She'd enrolled in engineering school, moved into campus housing, and occasionally sent Scarlett pictures of her projects with captions like, "Look Ma, no abusive alphas required." "Scarlett, there's a reporter from the Times who wants to interview you about the new crisis housing program. Tell them to talk to Rebecca. She's the director. She said to tell you to stop deflecting and take credit for your own work." Imani grinned. "Also, your boyfriend's father is crying in the lobby. Just FYI." Scarlett looked over. Jefferson was still with his father, but now Christopher had joined them, and all 3 Columbus men were having what appeared to be a very emotional conversation. As she watched, Jefferson glanced up, found her across the room, and mouthed, "Help me." She excused herself and headed over. "Ms. Franklyn," Jefferson Sr. said, his eyes red-rimmed, "I wanted to thank you for," his voice cracked, "for helping my son turn the worst day of our lives into something that might save others." "It was Jefferson's idea," Scarlett said gently. "I just helped execute it." "She's lying," Jefferson interjected. "She designed the entire program. I just threw money at things until she told me to stop." "You throw money at things very effectively," Scarlett allowed. Christopher laughed, the first genuine sound Scarlett had heard from him. "I like her. She doesn't let you get away with your martyr complex." "Nobody asked you," Jefferson muttered, but he was smiling. Jefferson Sr. looked between them, something like hope in his expression. "Are you bonded?" The question hung in the air. "Not yet," Jefferson said carefully. "We're taking things slow." Which in Jefferson speak means they've been dating for 5 months, and he's only mentioned it approximately 1,000 times, Christopher supplied helpfully. Scarlett felt her face heat. "He has not." He definitely has, Christopher continued, clearly enjoying himself. Last board meeting, he spent 20 minutes explaining why we needed to implement better parental leave policies because, and I quote, "When I bond with Scarlett, I want her to know our company values Omega parents." Christopher, I swear to God. And then there was the time he made legal draft a prenup that basically gives you everything in case of bond dissolution, which he then showed me while having a panic attack about whether it was romantic or insulting. Jefferson looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him. "I hate you so much right now. You love me. I'm your favorite brother. You're my only brother, which makes me the favorite by default." Scarlett watched this exchange with growing amusement. This was a side of Jefferson she rarely saw, the younger brother being mercilessly teased, the man who wasn't always in control. She liked it. The prenup was romantic, she offered, taking mercy on him. Overly cautious and slightly neurotic, but romantic. Jefferson's expression softened. Yeah. Yeah, she laced her fingers through his. But maybe run these grand gestures by me before you draft legal documents about them. Noted. Jefferson Sr. was watching them with an expression Scarlett couldn't quite read. "You're good for him," he said finally. "Catherine would have liked you." The statement landed heavy and significant. Jefferson's hand tightened on hers. "Thank you," Scarlett said. "I wish I could have known her. She would have been proud of this." He gestured at the building. "Of what you're both doing. She always wanted." He stopped, composing himself. She believed Omegas deserved better than what society offered them. She would have loved seeing her name on a place that actually helps. The four of them stood there for a moment, united by grief and hope and the complicated work of healing. Then Rebecca's voice called from across the lobby. "Scarlett, the mayor's here and he's asking about the program statistics." "A duty calls," Scarlett said. "Jefferson, you should stay with your family, catch up. I'll come find you after. Always." She started to leave, then turned back. "Mr. Columbus, Jefferson told me what happened, all of it. And I understand grief and fear make us do desperate things. But thank you for coming today. It means a lot to him, even if he won't say it." Jefferson Sr. nodded, unable to speak. As Scarlett walked away, she heard Christopher say quietly, "You're really going to bond with her, aren't you?" And Jefferson's response, "If she'll have me," which is a significant if, given my talent for catastrophic mistakes. "She'll have you," his brother said. "Anyone can see it." Scarlett smiled and went to talk to the mayor. The event wrapped up around 8, after endless speeches and photo opportunities and reporters asking variations of the same questions. By the time the last guest left, Scarlett's feet hurt, her face hurt from smiling, and she wanted nothing more than to collapse into bed. Jefferson found her in what used to be his mother's hospital room, now converted into a cheerful counseling office. "You okay?" he asked, leaning against the doorframe. "Just thinking." She turned from the window. "Your mom was in here when she died." "Yeah." He entered the room slowly, like it might bite him. "I hadn't been in here since that night, Not until the renovation. How does it feel now? He considered this, looking around at the warm paint colors, the comfortable furniture, the resources lining the shelves. Like maybe something good can come from something terrible. Like maybe pain doesn't have to be the end of the story. That's very philosophical for a cryptocurrency bro. I'm not a bro. Bros wear backward hats and say sick unironically. You literally said sick yesterday when your portfolio went up. That was ironic. It really wasn't. He crossed to her, pulling her into his arms with a sigh of contentment. Thank you. For what? For believing in this. For helping me turn my worst memory into something meaningful. He paused, for everything. Scarlett pulled back to look at him. You know what I realized today? What? Your father made a mistake, a terrible, fatal mistake. But he made it because he loved your mother so much he couldn't imagine existing without her. She cupped his face. And you've spent your whole life so terrified of making the same mistake that you almost didn't let yourself love anyone at all. Scarlett. But here's the thing, you're not him. You've proven that over and over. You fight your instincts when they conflict with my choices. You ask for consent. You respect my autonomy even when your alpha is screaming at you to be possessive and controlling. She smiled. You're not your father, Jefferson. You're better. His eyes were suspiciously bright. I'm trying to be. You're succeeding. She kissed him softly. And I think when you're ready. When we're both ready, I'd like to explore the bonding thing. Not because biology demands it, but because I choose you. Completely. Jefferson went very still. Are you serious? Completely serious. But not tonight, not tomorrow, when we've both done more work, when we're both sure. When it's a choice we make together, not something fear or instinct forces on us. I can wait. He rested his forehead against hers. I'd wait forever if that's what you needed. Let's aim for less than forever, maybe 6 more months. 6 months, he agreed. And Scarlett, thank you for choosing me, for staying even when I gave you every reason to leave, for seeing past all my damage to whatever's worth loving underneath. There's a lot worth loving, she said. You just needed someone patient enough to find it. They stood there in the renovated room where his mother had died, where his world had fractured, now transformed into a space of healing and hope. Outside the window, the city glittered. With possibility. If you've made it this far in our story, I want to hear from you. Do you believe people can truly break cycles of trauma and become better than their parents? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this journey with Scarlett and Jefferson, please subscribe and hit that like button. Your support helps us bring you more stories about love, healing, and second chances. Now let's see how this all ends. 6 months later, on a beach in the Maldives that Jefferson had rented for the weekend because he still solved problems by throwing money at them, Scarlett Franklyn said yes to a question that terrified them both. You're sure? Jefferson asked for the dozenth time, his hands shaking slightly as they stood in the surf at sunset. Because once I do this, there's no going back. The bond is permanent. I know what a bond is, Jefferson. I literally wrote my dissertation on omega biology. Right, yes, of course you did. He was spiraling, his carefully planned proposal dissolving into nervous rambling. It's just, this is permanent, and what if? Scarlett grabbed his face. Jefferson Columbus, I love you. I choose you. I want your bond. Ask me the question before I die of old age on this very expensive beach. He laughed, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. Scarlett Franklyn, will you let me bond with you? Will you choose me permanently for the rest of our lives? Yes. You didn't even hesitate. Why would I hesitate? I've been ready for months. You're the one who keeps panicking. I'm not panicking, okay? I'm panicking a little. He took a breath. But I'm also ready, so ready. I've been practicing the bite placement with my therapist. You practiced biting with your therapist. She had diagrams. It's important to get it right. He was blushing now, which was adorable. I want to do this perfectly because you deserve perfect. I don't need perfect, Scarlett said softly. I just need you. So he bit her. Right there in the Maldivian surf, with the sun setting and waves lapping at their feet, Jefferson Columbus gave Scarlett Franklyn his bonding mark, carefully, consensually, with a reverence that made her cry. The bond snapped into place like coming home. She felt his love, his fear, his absolute commitment to her happiness, felt the strength of his alpha finally released from the chains he'd wrapped around it, felt everything he'd been holding back for months flood through the connection between them. And it was perfect. Not because it was easy, bonds never were. Not because all their problems magically disappeared, trauma didn't work that way. But because they'd chosen it together, worked for it together, built something strong enough to sustain it. How do you feel? Jefferson asked, his voice rough with emotion. Like I just made the best decision of my life, Scarlett answered. How do you feel? Terrified, complete, deliriously happy. He kissed her bonding mark. Gently, like I finally understand what my father was trying to protect, and like I'll spend the rest of my life making sure I do it better than he did. We'll do it better, she corrected. Together. Together, he agreed. They stood there as the sun disappeared below the horizon. Two people who'd found each other in the least likely way, who'd fought through trauma and trust issues and the weight of history to build something new. The next morning, they flew back to their real lives, to Scarlett's dissertation defense and Jefferson's board meetings and the constant work of running an Omega advocacy center. They fought sometimes about stupid things and important things. They went to therapy, together and separately. They learned each other's rhythms, navigated the bond's intensity, figured out how to be partners in every sense of the word. And every night in the bed they now shared permanently, Jefferson would pull her close and whisper, "Stay still and take it." But now it meant something different. Stay still meant, let me love you without running from it. Take it meant, accept everything I am, everything I offer, everything we're building together. And Scarlett, who'd spent years protecting others and forgetting to protect herself, who'd loved a broken man back to wholeness while letting him heal her too, would stay still. And take it. All of it. The love, the commitment, the terrifying beauty of choosing someone every single day. Because that's what bonds were supposed to be. Not chains or ownership or biology run amok, but a choice made freely, maintained consciously, honored daily. A year later, when Scarlett successfully defended her dissertation, titled Autonomy and Agency, Reimagining Alpha-Omega Dynamics in Modern Society, Jefferson was in the front row, crying like his bonded Omega had just won a Nobel Prize. 2 years later, when they opened 3 more Catherine Columbus Memorial Centers across the country, funded entirely by Columbus. Pack resources. Derek Robinson sent a threatening email from prison. Jefferson had it framed. 3 years later, when Jefferson Sr. died peacefully in his sleep, finally at rest after decades of guilt, Jefferson grieved but didn't shatter. Because he had Scarlett and she had him, and together they were stronger than any single tragedy. And sometimes, late at night, Scarlett would catch Jefferson staring at her like she was a miracle. "What?" she'd ask. "Just thinking about the night I bought you at an auction." "You bought a date, not me." "Best 50,000 I ever spent." "You're impossible." "You love me anyway." "Unfortunately." But she'd smile when she said it, and he'd pull her close and they'd both know the truth. They'd saved each other. Not in the dramatic, romance novel way where one person fixes the other, but in the quiet, daily way of 2 damaged people choosing to build something beautiful from their broken pieces. Stay still and take it indeed. Thank you so much for reading Scarlett and Jefferson's story. If this tale of love, healing, and breaking generational trauma resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. It helps us create more stories that matter. And I have to know, what did you think of the twist about Jefferson's mother? Were you Team Scarlett or Team Jefferson during their big fight? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one and love hearing your perspectives. Until next time, remember, the best love stories aren't about perfect people. They're about imperfect people who choose each other anyway. See you in the next story.